The Political Party Regulation Commission, PPRC, has completed a significant step of formally gazetting the All People's Congress internal elections rules and regulations, marking a crucial phase in the party's preparation for its upcoming lower level elections and the 2026 National Delegate Conference. During this period, the PPRC initiated a mandatory 30-day for public review and objection. Running throughout this window, the Commission received objections to these rules and regulations. So this morning, to look at the objections and the APC party's position on those objections raised by, of course, members of the public, we have in the studios Sidia Tunis, who is the National Publicity Secretary for the APC party. Sidia, as always, it's a pleasure having you in our studios.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. And also, we have on the phone Lucien Momo, who is coming from the PPRC. Just to be confirmed whether...
I think on that note, we have the Executive Secretary for the Political Parties Regulation Commission online via Zoom, Olusegun Davis.
Yeah. Let's go.
And also, we were hoping to have Thomas Ali Babadi, a political analyst, but unfortunately, we got a different message from him this morning, and we won't be having him in the program. But we have Olusegun Davis, who is online at the moment. Good morning, and welcome to the program Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Yes, good morning.
Now, the PPRC mandated a 30-day objection window, which is a democratic safeguard. How credible and representative were the objections received?
Probably I must first and foremost set the pretext and for the benefit of the listening audience who may want to know why the PPRC had to gazette the rules and regulations of the All People's Congress. Of course, it is contained in the Political Parties Act, number 25 of 2022, that in an instance, any political party that veil the contents of its regulatory framework, those review or those citations should be brought to the attention of the PPIC. And in that particular provision as well, the Act mandates the PPIC to now gazette the alteration in the said documents and invite public objections. So that's the reason why when the All People's Congress develops the rules and regulations that will actually govern the conduct of the lower level elections of the party, they sent it to the PPIC as by the provision of the law. And at that instance, the Commission also forwarded that to the Government Printing Department for it to be gazetted on a government notice. We gazetted it for a period of 30 days, and during the window period of 30 days, we received objections to certain provisions and contents as contained in the rules and regulations. To this end, the Commission has officially forwarded all of the objections received from the respective objectors with regards to the rules and regulations, and we've given the party 14 days for them to actually respond on the content of those objections, and thereafter the Commission will now invite the objectors and the executive officers of the party. So we now discuss on the content of the objections and the response from the party in a face-to-face meeting.
As per some of the objections, raised against, the APC internal rules, what were some of the common or serious objections?
Well, I may not want to go to the details of the objections because I may not equally want to prejudice the responses that we'll get on those objections from the party. But generically, it borders around the constitution of the respective organs to oversee the conduct of the elections. It also borders around the procedures as outlined in the rules and regulations, and some other related citations as contained in the rules and regulations. But I may not want to go to the specifics because I may not want equally to prejudice what may be the written response from the party.
David, is the PPRC's work shrouded in secrecy, more so when you've just mentioned that you don't want to make known the objections raised? Is your work shrouded in secrecy or what?
Well, if it was shrouded in secrecy, in the first instance, there wouldn't be any need for me to come to the public to inform the public of the fact that we've received objections. If it was shrouded in secrecy, there wouldn't be any need for us to give all the copies of the objections received to send to the party. So, like I said, the work we do is within the public domain. However, there are instances as well when what we may say may tend to prejudice the outcome or the action of party structures. So it's not shrouded in secrecy. The PPIC operates under the dictates of the law, and we have an open approach, an open policy into all what we do. However, there are specific things that we may not mention at the instance of its request, but we may come back to the public and talk about it when it's deemed fitted and necessary. But our work is not shrouded in secrecy. And as I speak, all of the objections received are before the national officers of the All People's Congress.
Can one be in a haste to say one of such objections could be the recent hula baloo between members of the APC party, say Samuel Samsumana, and one critical sections in the constitution of the APC party that speaks to his eligibility to run for the flag bearership of the APC. Could that be one of those objections?
Well, I'll confirm to you that the commission received complaint from the former vice president, Honorable Chief Alhaji Samuel Samsumana, and in his complaint, he cataloged a series of issues he has actually taken with the national officers of the party, for which redress were not really made. And as a matter of fact, the commission has forwarded the content of his to the national officers of the All People's Congress for their response. And just yesterday, I can also confirm that the National Secretariat of the All People's Congress have responded to the complaints that was forwarded to them as received by the Honorable Samsumana. So that is the status so far. We are now in receipt of the response from the party. We will now ensure that those responses are sent to the complainants, that's Honorable Samuel Samsumana, for him to go through the response. And in an instance, he's comfortable with the responses, then that's fine. However, if he's not, then the commission will be left with no option than to bring him, together with the national officers of the party, to the commission so that we can be able to address and redress all of the content of his complaint.
Davis, say the responses sent to Samsumana, say he's in pleased with it, and PPRC is unable to get these parties understand themselves for sanity to reign within the APC. Do you see same to trigger court actions?
Well, as far as the commission is concerned, we have a primary responsibility of ensuring that we mediate between and amongst the leadership of political parties and between and amongst members of political parties. And in this instance, because of the confidence the Honorable Samsumana reposed on the commission, that's the reason why the officially sent to the commission is letter of complaint. So what we are focused on is to see what will be his responses to the issues that has been addressed by the national officers of the party, and thereafter we'll bring them to the table. So we are of the view that the commission will be able to look at the issues in the context of the provisions of the law. What happens thereafter, as a commission, we cannot determine that because every citizen has his or her rights, and we don't have the local standard to prevent any citizens from conducting him or herself within the confines of the law. But we are optimistic that those complaints are within the limits of the commission, and we have taken action as provided by law, and we'll do all such things that will bring a peaceful resolution to the matter.
Olusegun, quickly before we come to CDI Tunis in the studio, say the APC refused to amend, the rules in line with objections. What legal or regulatory steps can the PPRC take?
Hello?
Hello, Olusegun. Are you still
Yes,
with us?
definitely it is imperative on the All People's Congress that when objections are sent, they've actually provided responses, and that's the reason why we'll now call on the objectors when we receive the responses to those objections and call on the national officers of the party for us to have an engagement. And it's going to be very open in the presence of the objectors and the national officers. We go through the merit of the respective objections, and the objectors have the rights to now pose their queries, and the national officers in that particular medium will respond accordingly. And in the circumstance when the commission notes a variation, then definitely, let's note that sections 12(1) of the Political Parties Act gives the commission the power not only to register, but to regulate, supervise, and monitor the affairs of political parties. So it is imperative on the All People's Congress in a circumstance where there are variations in terms of the provision, in terms of the law, then definitely the commission will ask them to do the needful in tandem with the provisions of the law. And definitely the party will have to abide by that particular instructions,
Now,
if that's going to be the case.
Beyond objections, Olusegun, what broader role should the PPRC play in shaping democratic culture in Sierra Leone?
Of course, the commission has played a very significant role in shaping the political culture of politics within Sierra Leone, and that's the reason why you'll see that the political atmosphere is a bit very peaceful. It is not as toxic as it used to be. It's also boiled down to the regulatory and supervisory role of the PPIC. We ensure that our parties comply to statutes and statutory responsibilities, and we also ensure that we create a level playing field for all the parties to actually thrive. And in that instance, the consequent result of that is what we are now enjoying, which is a relatively peaceful political environment. And then in addition to that, we'll also note that following the signing of the Agreement for National Unity between the government and the All People's Congress on the 18th of October 2023, Resolution 5 gave a directive to the institutionalization of an inter-party dialogue framework. And as we speak, the Commission is charged with the responsibility of overseeing that inter-party relation between and amongst political parties. And that's the reason why we have constituted the Inter-Party Dialogue Committee, and thereafter we've been able to hold 6 successive meetings. And I'll tell you that we've got the participation of all of the parties. We have all the parties have signed to a terms of reference, and the Inter-Party Dialogue Committee now have an operational guideline and an official structure that runs the affairs of the committee's work. And I'll tell you for free that that inter-party dialogue platform brings together the leadership of the respective political parties to discuss on the issues of national concerns. And at the end of the day, those concerns are discussed with a view of ensuring that there is political cohesion and unity. And that's the reason why I'll boastfully say that the political environment currently in Sierra Leone is very peaceful and very calm.
Okay.
For internal political intra-party field, but there is none that is actually boiled down to inter-party field because of the platform that brings together the leadership of political parties. So that is exactly what the PPIC is doing, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do in ensuring that there is political tolerance, there is political cohesion, and people are politically educated as well. So that's our vision. And that's what we are working on in line with the provisions of the law.
All right, thank you very much, Olusegun Davies, Executive Secretary for the PPRC. We're encouraged that you continue to listen to the program, as we'll ask a producer to maybe later during the conversation bring you on board. But we have CDI Tunis with us in the studio. Now you've heard from Olusegun. The PPRC has gazetted your party's internal election rules, but objections were raised. How is the APC addressing, those objections?
Well, thank you very much. We are required by law to, go through certain processes before even we commence our internal elections. And one such is that, in the first place, the Constitution of Sierra Leone gives political parties the right to make rules governing, of course, their internal democracies, and which is exactly what we did by developing a certain set of rules to guide our lower level elections as well as the National Delegates Conference. And we are required by law to have those rules submitted to the PPRC so they could be gazetted, as he rightly stated. We did that in accordance with the law, and of course, we have received notifications from PPRC of people who have raised objections. We have responded. We have two different categories, of course. We have a complaint from the former vice president, and then we also have people who objected to the rules directly. So we have, of course, responded to the complaint letter from the former vice president. I believe that has been submitted to the PPRC yesterday. And of course, we have also started responding to the objections that have been raised by individuals with regards to the rules that we developed to govern our internal democracies. Those responses will be submitted to the PPRC soon, so that we can complete this process of objections and no objections.
Okay, cool.
CD, what sort of an effect has these objections on the preparations of the APC ahead of its delegates conference?
Well, in the first place, they have delayed our commencement of the lower level elections, because all of these processes have timelines. Our constitution is very clear as to the length of time it will take between one election to the other. So, for example, after we complete the whole PPRC saga, we are required to publish the voters register for example, ward election 21 days before that election commences. We were supposed to have actually started our ward elections as per our constitution since August. But now that this has happened, so we are experiencing delays. But this is what I'll say, Samuel. We were very much deliberate when we were developing those rules. We had a bitter experience heading into the 2023 National Delegates Conference and even the 2022 lower level elections, which is why when we were developing the rules for these lower level elections and the conference, we decided to stay within the provisions of our constitution. So there is not a single letter in those rules that is out of the constitution of the APC. If you remember, if you just heard Olusegun, the PPRC is required to publish for the general public to ensure that there are no alterations, in the documents, in our regulations or our constitutions, and that is exactly what we did. We ensured that every single one of those rules are from our constitution, so that we would not find ourselves wanting of violating our own law and also the Australian laws.
From concerns we've heard from the public and even members within the APC party, They seem to have painted a picture as if the APC party seemed to have violated certain provisions in the government of the land, which is the 1991 Constitution, Act number 6 of 1991.
In the first place, if that was
is your party's constitution in line with the rules of the land?
If it wasn't, we wouldn't have the constitution. Let us don't forget that this same constitution was the creation of the courts of Sierra Leone, by the way, because let us not forget that our 1995 constitution was challenged in court as not being democratic. So we were mandated and ordered by the courts of Sierra Leone to amend that constitution, even where the Constitutional Review Committee had already been set up by the leadership of the party to amend the 1995 APC constitution. But then the court stepped in. So which means, of course, the constitution that the APC has now has already gone through all of the legal processes that it required to have gone through. It went through the PPRC. It was published for over 30 days. We had over 100 petitions to this current constitution. There were omissions that were done not by the party, but by PPRC. There were additions also that were done at the PPRC. There were alterations to contents, to statements, to paragraphs that were done at PPRC. Even this main thing that people are now challenging, Article 56B, the 5-year duration clause, it was 10 years. It was reduced to 5 years at the PPRC when it was petitioned by people. So we had already gone through all of those legal processes. So if indeed the constitution of the APC violated any provision of the national constitution, I don't think it would have been accepted to serve as the constitution of our party. And let us not forget that it is this same constitution that took us through the lower level elections and the National Delegates Conference that produced us the presidential candidate that contested in the general elections in 2023. And all of our members of parliament and other elected officials went through the provisions of the APC before they were even presented to serve in those national elections. So if this constitution violated any part of the national constitution, I don't think the courts of Sierra Leone would have accepted it.
I was just looking at Article 56, subsection F, that speaks to the time frame for which the National Delegates Conference will have been held for the election of the flag bearer of the party. When in governance, it's 1 year to the elections, and when in opposition, it's 2 years. And now your party is in opposition. But aside same CD, in your opinion, is this a fight to ensure democracy in the party, or is it just a fight of one's personal aggrandizement, or so to speak?
I think it's personal, and I think people are deliberately doing it to delay us. Also, people probably think, because the party is in opposition, they can take advantage and probably believe that, things will be done against the party's interests, or they will be supported otherwise. Because I don't see wherein people can challenge rules that are emanating from the constitution of the party, the constitution that has already gone through these legal processes, these procedures and processes outlined by the law. And let us also don't forget that the same processes that we are going through now, we went through leading into the 2022 lower level elections and the 2023 National Delegates Conference. So even after going through all of the steps in having our constitution adopted, we also made rules to govern our internal elections heading into the 2023 elections. And these rules were challenged and addressed. So all of these, complaints or petitions that they have taken to PPRC now, They had already taken to PPRC before, and PPRC has dealt with them. So I don't know why they will do the same again. So if it is not to delay the party.
In lines with the rules that you mentioned, there are claims that, you know, the APC internal rules disproportionately favor certain factors within the party. How true is that? That
cannot be true, because the rules are applicable to every member of the APC. The constitution of the APC governs every member. And this is where people have to understand. When they say, oh, the APC is discriminating against, no. For you to become a member of a party is optional. It is not compulsory, it is not mandatory. It is a choice you make to belong to a party. But once you are a member of that party, you are bound to abide by the provisions of the constitution of that party. So these people have to understand that. Let us take, for example, the duration clause that everybody is fighting over. It is applicable to every position held in the party. There are duration clauses for every position in the party. Ward elections, for example, for you to contest for any position in the ward, our constitution says you should have been a member of the party in good standing for not less than a year. For constituency, it is 2 years. For district, 2 years. From region all the way to national is 5 continuous years. So Sidi Atuni seated here as National Publicity Secretary, I have to have been a member of the APC for 5 continuous years in good standing before I become eligible to contest for this position. So it is not, you know, looking at, you don't do constitution for individuals or for a group of people. The national constitution of Sierra Leone, we are all Sierra Leoneans. But the national constitution of Sierra Leone says, for you to be eligible to become the president of this country, you have to have attained the age of 40. Right? You have to be eligible to be elected a member of parliament. You also have to be, you should not have a citizenship of any other country. This is what the national constitution is saying. So even where we are all Sierra Leoneans, the constitution is limiting the position, certain position to certain set of people.
but Sidi, you know, Sidi, with that analogy, is the APC ready to compromise, some provisions in its constitution for peace to reign within the party?
The constitution is also very clear as to how it could be amended. And this is another problem we have with some of these petitions. Sometimes, believe you me, I sit and ask myself whether, in fact, some of these people who are sending in these petitions have even read the APC constitution. Because the constitution is very clear as to how provisions within it can be amended. It is only done at the National Delegates Conference. So if even people have issues with the Constitution and they want it amended, we are about to be going for the National Delegates Conference, suggest your amendments so that they could be discussed at the National Delegate Conference for the consideration of the delegates. Those amendments can only be done at the National Delegates Conference. So for people to be challenging provisions within the Constitution at the PPRC, I don't think, that is really done.
Tunis, it is said by, most of the politicians that we've interfaced with here in our studio that, every political party has their internal disputes. Now, in past elections, APC's internal disputes escalated into legal challenges. I mean, what steps are there in place to ensure that, same scenario doesn't occur again?
Well, I mean, that is why we were very deliberate. We were taken to court on the pretext that we violated our constitution and the national constitution. So this time we said to ourselves, okay, for us to avoid court, issues, let us just stay within the constitution, the provisions of our constitution. But even with that, Marina, people have taken complaint already. People are threatening to take us to court. And that is why, you know, some of us are looking at this as being very personal, you know, and the worst thing we can do is to do what people have been accusing us of. People have been accusing the party and took us to court because they felt the 1995 constitution of the APC was favoring certain group of people because they would just sit and select. That's what they said. And because of that, we were in court for 3 years. Even on the day of our National Delegates Conference, we were still in court. We had to wait for the judge to give clearance for us to commence our delegate conference. Twice we spent over 3 billion to hold conferences, and they were cancelled. We lost over 7 billion, you know. So we've had these bitter experiences, and that is why we did not want to go through that route again and decided to stay within the provisions of our constitution. But you still have certain set of people who are taking advantage of the law because they know it is the law that when you challenge, whether it is legitimate or not, the PPRC has to hear the challenge, the petitions. They have to deal with the petitions, so people are taking advantage.
Sierra Leoneans are very much abreast with issues of politics and development. You see now, even a kid can tell you some of the things that are ongoing in the country, even in terms of politics and stuff like that. That's how much, you know, Sierra Leoneans are glued into, you know, certain issues. And the aspect of transparency is a recurring concern. How will the APC ensure that these internal elections are transparent and credible?
Well, I mean, that is why we invite independent bodies. And that is why we are going through all of these stages that the law requires of us. You know, make your rules, make them public, have people petition the rules. That is the first step. The next step is you have to publish in full those who are eligible to participate, whether as voters or as candidates. And then thereafter, PPRC, like for example, in 2022, our lower level elections and the National Delegates Conference were monitored by PPRC and other independent elections observation, you know, groups like the Elections Observer Network, and we'll have them again this time to monitor these elections. And unlike before, now we have a body that has been established by our constitution responsible with conducting internal elections. The Internal Elections Management Committee, the IEMC, they are charged with the responsibility of conducting elections. This is an independent body created by the constitution of the APC. So all of these are to ensure that, you know, we ensure accountability and transparency for our internal democracies as, you know, mandated by the National Constitution of the APC, Section 35 to be specific.
Quickly before we go over to Ransford McLean for some sports updates. I mean, we had Richard Conteh here the other day from the ITGC. And, you know, from what he said, you know, it's crystal clear that, you know, there are some...
Alfred Conteh.
Alfred Peter Conteh, sorry. From what he said, you can actually sense that there are some fractions, you know, within the APC party, and somehow that may, you know, affect, you know, the APC in terms of the elections. How does the APC ensure that come, you know, 26 or 28, you know, 2028, the general election, those fractions does not affect?
First of all, Marina, let us be careful not to allow people who want to paint this picture as if there are divisions within the APC to be sitting on the media saying all sorts of things. In the first place, we have no body, group, or committee called ITGC anymore in the APC. ITGC was a creation of the courts of Sierra Leone with specific mandate to oversee the party for a specific period of time until the party had their internal elections completed and an executive in place. That mandate had long come to an end since 2023. So we no longer have an ITGC. We have a full executive of the APC in place now. So for Alfred Peter Conteh to be parading himself around as ITGC chairman, no. That mandate had long ended in 2023. We have no longer, it was a creation. You remember at some point when we were taken to court, the court at some point said, because the executives were not elected in 2017, they were null and void, they were illegitimate. So the court disbanded the entire APC executive. That was when the ITGC was set up to oversee the affairs of the party temporarily with specific mandate outlined by the court. And that mandate, and it is the same court also that set up the interim independent elections management committee that took the party through the lower level elections and the national delegates conference in 2023. When our executive was elected, it was taken to the PPRC and it was taken to the court, and the court accepted. So ITGC no longer exists. So for Alfred to be going around calling himself chairman, we don't have ITGC in APC.
Is that an act of misrepresentation?
It is a dishonest misrepresentation. It's dishonesty, it is a misrepresentation, and he needs to stop, because if he continues, the party will take legal action against him. Okay. We don't have any faction in the APC called ITGC. We have the APC and we have a full executive.
CD, as one of the petitions sent to the PPRC by Chief Sam Sumana centers around his payment of dues owed to the party. The other day, as Marina did mention, we hosted Alfred Peter Conteh in the studios, who mentioned that, yes, during his reign as interim chairman for the party, they received payments from Chief Alhaji Samuel Sam Sumana, which was to settle all his obligations owed on or to the party. CD. Don't you think that in itself presupposes that, yes, even though the man was not fully incorporated, but it shows his willingness to be a part of the party during those times?
You know, in law, there is the principles of equity. One who comes with equity must
come with clean hands.
Correct. So if you expect equity, you must also come with. So the reason why I'm saying that, I'll address that in two ways. We were not in charge as an executive in the first place. But when Alfred came in, when we came in, we did not see any record of that. That is one aspect of it. Then secondly, what Alfred did not also tell you guys in the studio, that he was reprimanded by the court for that particular action, because that did not fall within the mandate given to him by the court. So he was reprimanded and fined by the court to even pay 50,000 leones. He did not tell you people that. So that is some of the dishonesty people display when they come publicly, right? So these are all people working together to disturb the internal democracies of our party. That is one aspect of it. But then let us look at also the man himself who made the payment. Let us be honest. In this thing that we do, we must be very honest and sincere as how we get ourselves involved in some of the things we do. How on earth can you make payment for 2016 to 2023 in 2022 when you yourself know that when you left the party, whether by expulsion or whatever in 2015, You started expressing interest to return to the party in 2020. So between 2016 to 2020, you were not a member of the party, right? Between 2016, 2020, you were a member of another political party. You even became presidential candidate for that party. So if you pay backlog covering that period when you were a member of another party, when you were a political leader of another party, what does that say? Huh? How do you define that? How do you define that? Does that make sense? Unless if you want to do something that is not right. Right? That's the only reason you can do that. Because you know for sure that during this period, I was not a member of the party. And you also know, by the way, that in 2020, you were still not a member of the party. You had written and expressed interest to return to the party, right? And a letter was given to you. In that letter, it clearly stated, pending the approval of the National Delegates Conference, and you knew that the party has not had a National Delegates Conference. You knew all of this. And then you went and paid money to somebody that you know was created by the court with specific mandate which did not involve that particular mandate. And then you went ahead and, because, you know, this is why I said earlier, most of these things are happening because people are taking advantage of certain situations. And that's the only way I can define that.
We're trying to wrap up, CD. But again, one will say in all of these periods, Samuel Samsumana Chief had never taken the APC party to court, neither to ransom. We've had instances in Sierra Leone wherein individuals have held their party to ransom. Of course, Giselle name popped up. Let's say Samabanya, at some point in time with the SLPP, came back to the SLPP and he was given a hug. He was given an open arms. Why can't the APC replicate the same?
We have accepted Samsumana back in the APC.
Give him the opportunity to contest.
No, but that is not within our domain. That is constitutional provision. So you want us to violate the Constitution to favor one person? We cannot do that. The Constitution was not created in that way. Every member of the APC enjoys the rights and privileges of the party. But at the same time, every member is also obligated to abide by the provisions of the Constitution. It is very clear. So nobody is stopping anyone from contesting. No, if you are eligible, you can contest for any position. But the eligibility was not defined by individuals, which collectively came in. We all sat together. And by the way, there are people with Samsumana now who were members of the Constitutional Review Committee. And imagine those same people who were members of the Constitutional Review Committee, a constitution that was developed by us together, the same people petitioned that constitution again. Imagine you petition your own document that you co-wrote. Yes, we have gone through all of these things.
Perhaps they were not fully privy as to...
No, but we were all there. We did the deliberation. I was a member of the Constitutional Review Committee. So I know what I'm talking about. We were all there. We had the deliberations together. We agreed and disagreed. But at the end of the day, we made decisions somewhere by voting. But then after all that, when the document was completed, they went and challenged and petitioned certain aspects of it. So like you petition your own document. We've gone through all of this, which is why we are very careful as a party.
Tunis, as we wrap up in just a minute, how prepared is the APC to accept reforms, you know, if the PPRC upholds some of the objections raised?
Like I said, all of the rules that, you know, were developed are from the constitution of the APC. Of course, constitutions are subjected to amendments, always. You know, even us, there are several aspects that we have identified that maybe we needed to amend in the current constitution, but there are processes you follow. You don't amend constitution because of your own personal interest, because I want to contest for this position, so because of that the constitution is wrong. No, you don't do it that way. It has to be something meaningful, something that will stand the test of time. The 5-year clause that everybody is crying about in the APC, you go to the SFP constitution, it's there. It's even more tedious than us. It's not only being 5 years continuous, you have to have attained the position of Grand Chief Patron for 5 continuous years. It is there. So this idea of AP, you know, the national constitution is very deliberate, as saying political parties can make rules, because you also have to be safeguarded. The parties have to be protected. Why do you think, you know, the national constitution introduced 77K in parliament? Because they know people have the tendency of cross-carpeting based on convenience. That is why political parties are protected and safeguarded, given that responsibility to make their own rules. Just as they know when people go to parliament in opposition, like we are seeing now, they can cross-carpet. They will start betraying their own political parties, who send them to parliament to pitch tent with the ruling party. That's why 77K was introduced, but even that, we see people are abusing it.
All right, thank you so much, Sidia Tunis, Publicity Secretary for
the APC party.
APC party, and also thanks to Olusegun Davis, Executive Secretary for the Political Parties Regulation Commission, which is PPRC. I mean, it's been an engaging conversation.
Very much.
And Sidia Tunis has clarified, you know, some claims that was made here by, you know, is it Alfred?
Alfred Peter.
Alfred Peter Conteh.